Hi, this is Henry Chamberlain. Welcome to another Comics Grinder. Today's going to be like a really awesome treat. I've got Craig Thompson. He's one of our all-time great cartoonists. He's known for Blankets, of course, for Goodbye Chunky Rice and Habibi, all award winners. And today we're going to be focusing on Ginseng Roots. Thanks so much, Craig, for taking the time.
My pleasure. Thank you so much, Henry. Great to be here.
So I wanted to start by just asking you if you could do like an elevator pitch for somebody who's new to all of this of ginseng root stuff.
Okay, so Ginseng Roots is my newest book. It's coming out April 29th. It's half memoir and it's half documentary. When I was a little kid, starting when I was 10 years old, during my summer vacations, I would get up at the crack of dawn, 5 a.m., and then load up in the car with my little brother and drive with my mother out down gravel roads. We lived in the middle of nowhere in rural Wisconsin. Down gravel roads, down muddy fields, to giant ginseng gardens. And ginseng is a medicinal herb prized in Chinese medicine. And we'd work 8-hour days, 40-hour weeks throughout the summer, weeding this delicate medicinal plant. And I guess just to jump ahead a little bit, it was the first job of my life, ages 10 to age 20. When I started, I was getting paid $1 an hour, which translated to one comic book an hour. So it was this first job, ginseng agriculture, that fueled my obsession with comic books and kind of led me to where I am today. So this book is about myself, my childhood, but also about that herb and all the different labyrinthian tangles that it weaves around the world.
Well, that's a great way to begin. I'm going to share some pages from the book.
Oh, great.
And so, yeah, and we can just keep it really easy and casual. And if something strikes your fancy that you might want to chat about, we can. And I'll just ask you some questions as we go. For one thing, comparing your long form books, is there something you might be able to share with us about how you built up Ginseng Roots?
Yes. So this is the first project that I serialized in, comic booklet, pamphlet form, 32-page, 12-issue series through Uncivilized Books, which is based out of Minneapolis. That's Tom Kaczynski, the amazing cartoonist's company. And at this point in my career, I'd never worked in the comic book format, unless you count mini comics and zines, which was really my introduction to everything, going to Kinko's and photocopying and hand stapling my own zines. But I missed out on the whole 90s indie comics thing. So this was my chance to do that. I serialized the book first as 12 issues, but the book and the series are different beasts, because once I finished the series, it was missing some key components, some glue to hold it together, to help me transform it into a book. And so it went through a bit of an overhaul. I added 60, 70 new pages. If you've read both the series and the book, you already know that I moved the order of things around a bit. So they're different characters.
So for the interview, I may end up seeming repetitive, but I might come back to ask you a little bit more about your process. I see, of course, the final Pantheon edition is 12 chapters, and there's been things you've updated or refined or expanded on.
Yes, so like the series, it's like the series was 12 issues. The book is 12 chapters. But basically the ninth chapter doesn't even really exist in the series. And it really focuses a lot on my personal health crisis that I ended up inserting in the book. I mean, it was really like I mentioned earlier, the glue that was needed to hold the whole book together is to be vulnerable about my own health crisis and how ginseng related to that too.
I wanted
Um,
to, oh, I'm sorry.
oh, and so the viewers are seeing the pages as we scroll through them.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll just, but right here, we've been seeing the pages that exactly illustrate what I was mentioning at the onset about this being my first job and getting paid $1 an hour that fueled my, burgeoning hobby of comic books.
I wanted to ask you, what did it feel like to return to the subject matter of childhood and growing up that you had tackled so beautifully in blankets? What did it feel like to go back to that?
Quite different because of my age. When I started Blankets, I was 23 years old. I worked on that book ages 23 to 27. I was only 5 years away from the events that took place in the book.
Hmm.
So it was pretty raw, and I still was a kid, when I started that book. I was still living a lot of those experiences and trauma. And now I'm just turning 50. I'm the age my parents were when Blankets was published. So it's definitely a midlife sort of perspective. The dynamic with my parents have shifted. They're in a much more vulnerable position than they were then. But it's also just a more nuanced, you know, um, and empathetic view of my parents,
Yeah.
and just a whole different view of my childhood. Like the place where I grew up. I grew up in rural Wisconsin, and I hated growing up there, and always wanted to get as far away as possible from this kind of suffocating small town, rural, like farming community environment. And that eventually led me to, the West Coast, to Portland, one of the most liberal cities in America, and like, artistic circles. But this was a chance for me to kind of go back to where I grew up and reconcile a lot of things and feel differently than how I felt when I was in that place of discomfort as a child.
Yeah, I definitely picked up on that, that you were more forgiving or more tolerant about certain things. There's just layers of wisdom as you get older. And as you're showing on this page, and people can listen to it or see the video, whatever. But this particular thing we're looking at here is a young person. Maybe there's some callousness there, and he's fantasizing. Well, maybe someday I can be like Bob Hope or Jack Lemmon, and be in a silk robe drawing comics away from all the stuff that's going on in my life right now.
Yeah, I mean, growing up working class, my dad was a plumber, and everyone around me was farmers, truck drivers, carpenters, electricians. It was, I didn't know adults who had university educations. That wasn't my class. And so, like, my first job was outdoors, working an agriculture job, dealing with all the elements of the outdoors and all the discomforts. And besides the fact that I love comics, it also seemed like a very cushy lifestyle, as I say here.
Hmm.
Just hiding inside all day, hiding from the physical elements of weather, and getting to make believe and draw.
Well, that's definitely among many things. That's one of the things that people can totally relate to easily, wishing that their life would just go ahead and get on with their lives for younger people. And then older folks can look back and say, well, maybe there were some good things that happened. I learned how to fish, or I learned how to be in a canoe, or whatever. Certain things that maybe you wouldn't have gotten to do if it hadn't been for your parents.
Yeah, now I miss being outside.
Yeah.
Maybe it seemed like the worst thing when I was a kid, but after 25 years of a career in graphic novels, it sounds nice to get out of the house a little bit more often. And this book brought me out of the house.
Yeah.
Um, it wasn't something just created for my imagination, not at all, really. It was a documentary work, so I had to get out in the field and interview people. I interviewed nearly 80 people for the project, and everything well, not this page that we're looking at right now, but generally any word balloon, the dialogue is from a recorded conversation with someone I interviewed.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, you do this so smoothly. You just do it. And I mean, like certain comics journalists like Joe Sacco.
I mean, my biggest inspiration of all, Joe Sacco.
Yeah.
Certainly for this project because I wanted to work deliberately in comics journalism. But more broadly with Joe in general, I mean, he's a friend, full disclosure, and a mentor. He's a great role model for artists. But yeah, I always wanted to do comics journalism like he does, but I don't have his background in journalism. I don't have his intellect. I don't know if I have that sense of adventure that Joe has of going to war zones and whatnot and being embedded, in these places of conflict. Um, but then with this book, I sort of had a very natural and organic subject matter that was kind of unique to me that I had like my entry point. And so, I had wanted to write about a book about plants. I've said this before, it's sort of my tagline. And I was also really influenced by Michael Pollan, the, kind of food and plant writer. We know Michael Pollan, maybe, let's see, most famously for Omnivore's Dilemma or How to Change Your Mind. But the book that really influenced me was called Botany of Desire. And it's about four plants that shaped human civilization as much as we manipulated them as species. And after that, I really wanted to do a book about plants. But I don't, again, I'm not a botanist. I don't have the sort of educational academic background of Michael Pollan. And so just meditating on what plant I might have any knowledge of, ginseng surfaced right away. And then when I started looking into ginseng, I was like, oh yeah, there's a lot here. This is some meaty material that I can dive into for a book.
Oh yeah. Well, I did a review of your book, and one of the things that I wanted to emphasize to folks is that a graphic novel and a novel, they share a lot of things as far as the framework, the methodology. It starts as a small thing, and then it mushrooms and becomes bigger as you keep adding things onto it. Because I know about that. I've done my fair share of graphic narratives, and I know that if it's something you just have to do, suddenly there's a book that you need to read, another book that you need to read, a movie, and it starts building and building.
Yeah, sometimes I'd read an entire book just to inform one panel, especially
Yeah.
in those. Yeah, yeah. There's certain chapters that are a little more dense and about things I didn't know about at all. So I'd have to sit through, get through a pile of books just to write that one 32-page chapter.
Well, I won't go through the entire book, but I wanted to also let folks know that this is a monumental book, right up there. Well, in scale with blankets and your other work, Habibi. It's. Can you tell us something? Maybe share some kind of insight about the freedom that you have when you have a like a huge canvas to work on.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, I guess I've always tended towards like this longer format, like, blankets being 580 pages, at a time when that was pretty novel, so to speak. Was I like books that are fully immersive, that you just kind of get lost in and a little disoriented before you're, have this opportunity to sort of wander down labyrinthian, routes and work your way back to the main narrative. Um, in the case of this, I serialized it first, as I was mentioning with Uncivilized Books. The 12 issues was arbitrary. I was just like, well, that seems like the right amount for a series, 12 issues. I like the numerology. And I worked out an outline, but then as I was going along, I just focused on one issue, one chapter at a time. I just write it, pencil, ink it, color it, publish it before really digging into the next. So each issue was self-contained when I was putting it out as a series. So
Yeah.
that's like, yeah. So that was like the main focus. It's just like let's make each of these issues standalone, but maybe hopefully have enough momentum to get person to need the next issue. But they're not cliffhangers.
Well, yeah, I was thinking how to do justice to the book, and I thought maybe we could focus on one of the chapters. And kept coming back to MAGA, Make America Ginseng Great Again, because there's so much going on in that. And I also saw a wonderful video with Will Sue of Sue Industries or Sue Enterprises, and he breaks down the whole history of ginseng. And so you get to talk a little bit about the trade issues going on. Does that spark any ideas or anything you might want to share about that
Yeah,
chapter
definitely.
five?
Yeah, so chapter 5 of the book and issue 9 of the series focused on the Sioux family. Paul is the father and Will's the son that took over the family business. And Paul Sioux immigrated from Taiwan and with a degree in social work, but ended up becoming a ginseng farmer and then growing the business into like a mega growing operation. And partly because they really diversify. They're not just growing, they're producing all these different products. And because they have this family connection in Taiwan and to all the trade routes, you know, like, they had a lot more leverage than, say, like just the average white farmer from Wisconsin that did not know Taiwan and Asia and China. So, but this was a tagline that Will Sue used in 2018. The family has a lot of political ties. They've had ties to the Bush administration, to some tangential ties to the Trump administration, to local government. I mean, they're big business. And so I think big business ends up being tangled with politics. And when I was traveling in Asia, I was in China and South Korea and Taiwan. And in Taiwan, I met with my publisher there, my foreign rights agent, Joanne Yang, and she started talking about like, oh yeah, I heard about Wisconsin ginseng because of the Trump of Taiwan, Terry Gou, has ties with President Trump in the United States, and they're both getting involved in Wisconsin ginseng. And I'm like, what are you talking about? That the first I heard about it was in Taiwan, and it's actually a pretty convoluted sort of thing, but it was people may have heard of President Trump trying to get, I mean, it's happening more now, more industry and factories in the US. And he made a deal with Terry Gou, who's the CEO of Foxconn, the world's largest electronics manufacturer. They employ more people than anyone in China. And that's where iPhones come from and Xboxes and most of the electronics. And they wanted to start a company in Wisconsin. And they were able to score the biggest state subsidies in U.S. history, something like $4 billion. And they said they were going to bring all these jobs to the area. None of that quite materialized, as these things don't. I think they have like a tenth of the staff that they thought that they would have. But also Terry Gou was very, very obsessed and interested in ginseng, in Wisconsin ginseng. So he teamed up in some form with the Sioux to develop his own brand of high-end Wisconsin ginseng. We talk about a lot of that in this chapter. We talk about the political connections with ginseng, the importance of like Taiwan and China in terms of U.S. politics. We talk about a lot of the science going into this because Will Sue is coming from a much more academic background. He has his MBA from Harvard, and
Hmm.
he did work in corporate, like sort of. Here it is right here. He worked in corporate food product arenas of General Mills and Small Planet Foods. So it was like that sort of corporate food world that he brought a lot of that sensibility to, artisanal ginseng farming. So yeah, we explored the science too, all the research being done and sort of like breaking down the compounds of ginseng,
Yeah.
synthesizing them for pharmaceuticals. I mean, this is apparently where the whole future, uh, you know, of a lot of medicinal herbs is,
Well,
and
that's a
finding ways to synthesize the compounds.
yeah. And on this page, we're bringing it back to family. It's wonderful how you, I don't know if it's a pun or not, but getting into the weeds of your subject.
There's a lot of family stories actually in ginseng. So right here on this page is the other giant grower in my region, Craig Ballman. Him and his brother uh, are the other competitively big growers to the Sioux. And they also had a family story. It was like brothers that started this business. It was pretty charming. But when I was interviewing people, I was always looking for that real, like, kind of emotional connection with their stories. And and that was something that happened with Will Sue. I think there was just, there's also things about like his grandmother being in a health crisis, his father being in a health crisis, and where ginseng helped both of them, you know, whether that is like a story that they've just sort of created over time for branding. It works really well. It's like an emotional hook
Yeah.
about their family and about survival, that was really compelling to me.
Yeah,
Here's Will talking about a lot of the products that they prepare.
yeah, I encourage folks to check out the talk that he gives. It's on YouTube, easy to find. And yeah, he's a very nice person, very knowledgeable,
Yeah,
very
like I said,
authentic.
he's got that Harvard backdrop. So like right on this panel on the far right is Paul, the father, and then Will on the left. And Paul identifies as like the farmer, where he thinks of his son as like the brains, the academic one.
I wanted to ask you, what can you tell us about ginseng? Are there misconceptions or a lack of understanding from the general public that you picked up on? Or
Yeah, there's a lot. Number one, most people have never even really heard of it, or they're just confused what it is. People always refer to it as ginger roots because ginger is something they're familiar with. It's in their grocery store, and it's also a bit of a medicinal herb and a root. But no, ginseng is much more prized and potent. And then maybe the third association people have is like these power energy drinks or weird like gas station, truck stop energy drinks, and those are, I mean, those are terrible, whatever they are, but those are usually derived from Asian ginseng, which is a stimulant. People can use it for a lot of different things, um, almost like caffeine. But American ginseng is a different species, and it has sort of the opposite properties. It's a much more cooling, adaptogenic herb that is better for daily and long-term use in general overall health. And they say that's the one that's more prized in Asia. Like Asian ginseng, the one that grows indigenously over there, is a stimulant that you would use for extreme situations. And then American ginseng is an adaptogen that you can just use to nourish your health in general.
yeah, I was about to say that that's fascinating that the Chinese prefer American and American prefer the Chinese ginseng.
Yeah, because in America, we're always just about like stimulation, I guess, all the time.
Hmm. Well, I wanted to maybe just round things out a bit by asking you, and you talk about it beautifully at the beginning of the book. What is it about comics that you've always been attracted to, what that you love about the medium?
Well, yeah, I'm like a lot of people. I think I'm more visual learner, visually oriented. But unlike other visual mediums, like film and whatever video games and all this, digital content, it just kind of like washes over you. It bombards you. It's moving, over you. And comics is much more intimate, and it's something the reader can take in at their own pace.
Hmm.
I've said before that like prose, I mean, of course, I love prose, but prose actually has a sort of arm's length technology of being typeset. Um, so you're looking at a font that's been typed,
Hmm.
Whereas with comics, you're actually seeing the handwriting of the author. There's a great intimacy in that. You're seeing their handwriting both in the lettering, but also in the drawing itself. Um, so I'm always been like into the calligraphy of cartooning, um, and the sort of strange time travel of comics that you can exist in different times on the same page. I don't know another medium that can do that so effortlessly. I mean, it takes skills like us readers of comics it's also something that we're sort of indoctrinated with, and so we know how to read them. But once you do, there's like a lot of potential.
Yeah, and it can
Uh,
become intoxicating
yes, I love that. Intoxicating.
because it's happening instantaneously, simultaneously. You're in this space here. These people are talking, and something else is going on the right, something else is going on the left.
I would just got back from several months of touring in Europe, and the AI question always comes up. And if I feel threatened as an artist or a cartoonist by AI, or what my thoughts are about that, and my general response is that while I think all jobs are threatened, I don't think arts are necessarily singled out over other jobs. And maybe human life will be threatened by AI. Um, I don't think comics specifically is threatened. I think that because AI can do a lot of things better, quote unquote, better than humans, the things that people will start to value more in the arts is the humanity, the fragility, the flaws, the vulnerability, those things. That's again why I like paper and ink, because it can transmit those things. I don't want to draw digitally because of the perfection or the cleanness of the line. I want to see the humanity in the line, and I think that's going to become more and more common. Like people, as AI takes over all of illustration and the images we see, we're going to be seeking out images that feel more human in their flaws.
Oh yeah. Well, I don't think that a lot of people need to worry so much about AI, as you just said, but because in terms of comics in particular, because comics is so idiosyncratic, I can't see AI doing what you do or what Kate Beaton does or what any other cartoonist does. They can AI has got me as far as hyper realistic illustration, but that's the only thing I see where they do seem to have humans in the dust. But then it's also very generic. You can't get around that. AI is regurgitating what humans can do, and it's just a generic.
Yeah, so it'll just make generic content much easier and it'll proliferate that. But like, yeah, the more personal content will require humans.
And as far as your hand drawn, is it all hand drawn lettering, or did you have a font?
Yeah, yes, it's all hand drawn
That's
for
what I
the
always thought. Yeah.
for
I hesitate to ask because that's one of the things about when people talk about what is what is it about independent comics? Well, it's because the author, usually it's an auteur comics artist, does everything, and they naturally do the handwriting because and they always say because it's part of the art.
Yeah, I like it being embedded in the art for one thing. It makes it more difficult to work on all the foreign editions. And for those, we use a digital font. I have a digital font created from my hand lettering so that I can do foreign editions. But no, yeah, I want the lettering to be on the page. I always start with the word balloons first. It's like how much art can fit around these word balloons. Uh, I let the word balloons be kind of minimal. I don't want them to get too dense and wordy. And
Yeah, yeah,
I just
absolutely.
letter with like a felt, like a micron pen, which is like an archival, like a pit pen or a micron pen. But I find that with those, it's like loose enough that it keeps the character of my handwriting. It's not as stiff as maybe if you're using a more traditional tool to slowly letter. I want it to have more of the looseness of my hand lettering.
Yeah, yeah. As I get older and older, I still think about should I be drawing this way? Should I be drawing that way? And I've always gone with a speedball, but there is a little bit of resistance. But if you like that resistance, then you just can't help but use a speedball. But if you like a micron, then that's what you do. And one person said, "Well, don't even think about it so much. Whatever it is that you are drawn towards, that you end up that you end up doing most of your work with, it makes you want to be productive. Keep
That's great
working."
advice. Yeah, I'd agree with that for sure. Although I
Yeah.
admire you for using the more traditional speedball style, like I was never patient enough, and but I guess like if it's taking you longer, it's also giving you more time to think about both the words that are in the balloon and other decisions on the page. So there's the benefit to slowing it down even more.
Yeah, it can be a tough nut to crack for folks, but I usually tell folks, it's going to be time consuming whatever you do, whether it's all analog or digital, you're going to be taking time. So just pick whatever it is that really works for you.
Yeah, agreed. That's a solid advice.
Well, I wanted to um, ask you. Oh, well, this is. Let me see. I might have to read this one because looking at the issues you cover in your new book, what do you think it'll take for better economic outcomes for folks in rural areas?
Oh, wow, that's a great and broad question. Yeah, because in my hometown, population 1,200 people, this town that I found suffocating as a child, I do feel a nostalgia for it because it was all these homegrown businesses, the grocery store and the diners, uh, and the little general store and the pharmacy where it had the spinner rack where we bought our comic books. All of those were local businesses owned by families in town.
Yeah.
And now they're all gutted. There's no real businesses there except just on the outskirts of town. There's a bunch of corporate like McDonald's and those sort of things. People get off the highway so they can stop at the McDonald's or Quick Trip or it makes me very sad to see the loss of those local businesses. And then also the ginseng industry has really kind of dried up even during the course of working on this project. Part of that is climate change. The growing region has started to nudge further north, and I saw that happen only just in the course of whatever it took me 6 years or so to work on this book. The gardens started migrating north because it was too warm in south of my parents' house to grow anymore.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, and as a kid, I was just found my where I grew up so sheltered from everything else culturally and what was going on in pop culture. But I have some like fondness for that reality now because now everybody's online, so culture has become pretty homogenous and global. They talk about how Instagram has made interior design generic wherever you go in the world.
Oh,
I
yeah.
was just at a little cafe the other day in Portland, and we were commenting on that of like, yeah, all cafes everywhere look exactly the same now. Like we've been spoon-fed this specific aesthetic via the Instagram algorithms. So if you're in Portland or I don't know, Iowa City or Barcelona or Beijing, all the cafes look exactly the same. So I miss the strange cultural isolation of where I grew up now.
Well, for a long time, Seattleite, I can tell you that that's one of my favorite things to spend time in a good coffee shop. And I'll mildly correct you because the independent coffee shops, they can all be a little different and they have a well-worn, homey, comfy vibe to them.
Maybe Seattle has kept the integrity of that thing because and Portland used to be like that too, but I wouldn't say that of Portland now. They're all kind
Oh,
of look the same kind of inoffensive, minimalist aesthetic, hipster,
oh yeah.
style.
Yeah, the minimalist thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you see that worldwide. Nice gray, beige.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's definitely that beige is exactly what we were commenting on the neutral, muted, inoffensive tones of beige and gray. Yeah. As we look at some gray tones here in ginseng roots, and not quite beige, but a skin tone. So everything in the book is just two inks. It's a black ink and a red ink, and then gradations of those colors to get a whole palette of sepia tones. You know,
Okay,
and
so
I really nerded out on that process. If I sprinkle just a little touch of red into this gray, I get this nice earthen tone.
well, here's a question. Did you end up going back and tweaking things in Photoshop or no?
It's funny that we circled back to this weren't we just looking at this exact panel a moment ago? It's a funny one to keep landing on.
It seems that way, but I've been going forward the whole time.
Oh, interesting. I'm sorry, what was the question again?
Did you end up tweaking things in Photoshop at all?
Oh, yes, yes. Yeah. I mean, so everything is drawn on paper with ink, the line art. And then a lot of the second color I would do use a piece of bond paper that I would lay over the line art, just some tracing paper to do that second color. But then it's all scanned and composited in Photoshop. And then to get separate tones, if I want, that's all like Photoshop manipulation of many layers of different reds and grays.
And Photoshop has been around for forever, so it's kind of developed its own cred now.
Yeah,
I,
I mean, my last real job before I was a cartoonist was being a graphic designer back in the 90s. I worked at a newspaper, my first graphic design job in like 95. In 96, I was at this small town advertising agency. And then in 97, and no, 98 is when I worked at Dark Horse Comics as a graphic designer as my last real job. So I kind of came from that background of production. And before I was doing comics or illustration, I was helping out Top Shelf Comics with book design, and production work, computer stuff, because that was more my skill set. I mean, and I'm still kind of stuck in the 90s with my skill set around those things, but my 90s training in Photoshop has been enough to carry me through my whole career.
well, a lot of people would envy your skill set. I was thinking in terms of comparing it to Procreate, which has a lot of wonderful things going on, but a lot of young people are that's all they know is Procreate, and then they think, oh, I don't know, I'm not going to even bother with Photoshop, or maybe I'll learn a little bit of it, but you know the whole thing.
Yeah, but I don't know Procreate. I
Oh, you
got an
don't know you don't
iPad.
know Procreate, but you could. I mean, I'm saying the whole thing, Photoshop,
Yeah.
which
Yeah,
is
no, and what I feel most lucky about, and maybe you relate, but like, I worked at this newspaper in the 90s, and I worked at Dark Horse in the 90s when there was still so much like analog paste up sort of elements, like, and so, I still think about making like, say, a color page like this is almost more like making a screen print, um, and thinking about trapping and how the colors print out on the plates. There was a printing press in the building when I worked at the newspaper, so you would see each plate and you would see the cyan, the magenta, the yellow, and the black plates printed and how things would come alive. Um, and yeah, when I've tried to tinker with something like Procreate on an iPad or something, I think its default is RGB because mostly people are using it for online stuff. And right away, that's jarring to me. I'm so trained in CMYK, which is the way things are printed.
mhm.
So like old school print technology is like an obsession of mine. Maybe not on the level as someone like Jordan Crane. He is like the expert in all these things, but we're of that generation that like sort of analog printing technique is still super compelling to us.
Oh yeah. Well, at this what we're looking at here is just one example of all the what you're talking about, all that know-how, all that attention to detail, all that just beauty on the page. So yeah, it's this is if you haven't checked out Ginseng Roots in its different incarnations, you must get Pantheon, or even if you've already gotten it. Is there anything that you could tell us about the new Pantheon edition? Or is there a little
Yeah,
bit
of
extra
course.
going on?
Yeah, and do you know when this is going to air, this interview?
When would you like it to air?
Oh, I'm flexible, but the release date is April 29th for the
Yes,
book edition. So if
I'm
people
very
are
good about that.
confused, okay, if they're confused why they haven't seen the book yet, it comes out at the very end of the month on April 29th. And there's about 60 or 70 more story pages in the graphic novel versus the series. They're really quite a different reading experience. I moved things around. I changed the beginning, I changed the end, and I added a lot in the middle for the book. Um, the series also has unique things though too. It has a lot more pages by my brother. My brother was contributing one or two pages of his own written and drawn comics to every issue. There's like a letters page, like an old school letters page in the series. And just the object, I think, of the comic book, it makes it different. But the book is hardcover. It's 448 pages. It's um, uh, yeah, it's what else do I need to describe about it? It's a different reading experience, and it's one that I'm much more satisfied with because when I sat down to read the series, and this is like a year and a half ago when I finished the series, I finished the last issue came out in September 2023. I sat and read all 12 issues and it didn't feel cohesive. It didn't feel like a book yet to me. So it went through quite an overhaul for me to transform those 12 issue series into this 448 page book. I mean, I added in the end, yeah, it's about 80 new pages of material. And that included my health crisis. It included the pandemic, which originally I wasn't going to include in the book, and includes a couple of funerals that happened over the course of working on the project. So all those ended up working their way into the narrative.
Wow. Well, I think right now, should I say farewell? Oh, because I want to keep talking to you, but
Oh,
I think we
yeah, I'm flexible. I don't know when Zoom time's out, but I don't have anything immediately after, so
well, I guess let me ask you one more question. Would
of
you want
course.
to work your way through describing how you tackle a visual metaphor?
Ooh, how do I tackle a visual metaphor?
What
Um,
with the ginseng root, for instance, how you've used it throughout the book?
well, I think with every project, I mean, they sort of start with some sort of visual metaphor or symbol, or scene. But it's hard to know how I break it down. I mean, comics, that's one of the unique powers of comics is you can illustrate ideas visually with metaphors, like it just sort of happens organically. I think my religious instruction also informs that because
Hmm.
Jesus's teachings were all in parables and they're all a little bit abstract that you have to like sort of decipher the meaning from them. Some cartoonists are far better than I at working the magic of words and pictures where you can have the words say one thing and the images say a different thing. And in that dissonance, there's suddenly a whole new like message, that emerges. I can't think of a specific example, but yeah, the root itself. I mean, I think that was part of. I mean, I was drawn to the physicality of a plant root, but it was also the perfect metaphor for this process I needed to engage of like kind of going back to where I came from, of like tilling through that soil, like aerating that soil. Um, One thing about ginseng that is really confounding and a bit disturbing is it can never be grown on the same plot of land more than once. This is a big frustration of farmers, as you can imagine. And we are running out of, land in places like Wisconsin for growing. So after you grow ginseng there, they say like hundreds of years can go by and you still will never be able to have a successful crop of ginseng grow there again. You can grow other crops, corn, soybeans, whatever, they do fine, but not ginseng. And it's because it does like it deposits a sort of toxin in the soil, particular to the plant. I write about this in the book, so I don't want to give away spoilers. But on a
No.
personal level, as an author that's pretty much best known for my memoir Blankets, I was very wary of that energetically. Like, oh, if you can't plant the crop on the same plot of land again, is it dangerous for me to go back to, Wisconsin and memoir and try to plant there again, which is what I did with this project.
Oh, wow. Well, that's a wonderful place to close out. I wish you so just the very best. I'm assuming that you're going to, when the time is right, do another project, sort of a comics journalism thing. Is that something you want to do next, maybe? Or
I don't know. I mean, every time I do an autobiographical book, I tell myself I'll never do it again, and that usually sticks for a while. Although, and I just got back from 4 months of touring in Europe, and during that tour, I started to dream up some ideas for a future project, which would again be memoir. So we'll see. uh, if I go that route. I mean, I'm curious about someone like Alison Bechdel, who's now like sort of universally each one of her new projects is Alison Bechdel is always a memoir focused project. But I'm not sure. I'm not really not sure what the next thing is. I think it is a strength of comics, though, and I know it's a format I like reading.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it'll come to you when the time's right.
thank you.
Well, thanks so much, Craig.
Yeah, thank you. And you're in the Seattle area, right, Henry?
My heart is always going to be in
Oh,
Seattle, but I've been moving around. I'm eventually going to return to Virginia Beach, which seems to be my
oh,
home base these
okay,
days.
okay. I was
But
just
that,
asking because I'll be, on tour. I'm starting a 2 month book tour, and
yeah.
I think I'm in Seattle, near Seattle. May 14th is the date that comes to mind, but in a week or two, I'll post all my different tour dates that are coming up.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Craig.
Thank you, Henry. This is great. Great questions. Really great to see you.